Why Stoicism has become a trend in turbulent times. Introduction. A return to ancient wisdom in modern chaos. In a world marked by constant disruption, emotional volatility, and a never-ending stream of information, it's no surprise that many people are turning toward ancient philosophies to regain their sense of balance. From global pandemics and economic instability to political unrest and the pressures of modern life, we are living in an age of profound uncertainty. As traditional sources of comfort, religion, community, stable employment, become less predictable or accessible, individuals are seeking guidance elsewhere. One philosophy that has made a powerful resurgence in recent years is Stoicism, a school of thought rooted in ancient Greece and Rome that offers timeless wisdom for modern chaos. The rise in popularity of Stoicism is not merely a passing trend. It reflects a deeper yearning within society for mental clarity, emotional resilience, and personal responsibility. In a time when people are overwhelmed with choices, bombarded by bad news, and paralyzed by anxiety over the future, Stoicism provides a remarkably straightforward yet powerful framework for navigating life. It teaches us to distinguish between what we can and cannot control, to face adversity with courage, and to live with intention and integrity. Social media influencers now quote Marcus Aurelius as frequently as they post gym selfies. Podcasts dedicated to personal growth frequently delve into Epictetus's teachings. Books like The Daily Stoic have become bestsellers, and business leaders cite Stoic principles when making high-stakes decisions. This revival is not happening in academic halls or ivory towers. It's happening in everyday lives, across professions and generations. The question is, why now? Why has a philosophy born in ancient times found such resonance in our digital, globalized, and often fragmented world? The answer lies in Stoicism's essential appeal. It is both deeply practical and psychologically profound. At its core, Stoicism is a philosophy of action. It encourages us to become more aware of our thoughts and reactions, to accept life's unpredictability without becoming emotionally overwhelmed, and to find strength not in external circumstances, but within ourselves. These teachings are not abstract ideals meant to be debated endlessly. They are tools meant to be used, especially when the world around us feels unstable. In the last decade, the world has faced a cascade of crises: economic recessions, climate change, mass layoffs, pandemics, and the rapid acceleration of technology have created a collective sense of vulnerability. Many of us feel we are on the edge of something, whether it's burnout, breakdown, or a fundamental transformation in how we live. In such times, we don't just need distraction or entertainment, we need wisdom. And Stoicism, with its emphasis on calm reflection, inner discipline, and emotional regulation, has emerged as one of the few philosophies that can genuinely meet the moment. Moreover, Stoicism aligns seamlessly with the growing emphasis on mental health and mindfulness. While modern therapy focuses on cognitive behavioral techniques and mindfulness practices, Stoicism anticipated many of these concepts centuries ago. The idea of examining one's thoughts, challenging irrational beliefs, and focusing on the present moment are all central to Stoic practice. It is, in many ways, a mental health system dressed in philosophical robes. But there is another reason Stoicism has made a comeback. It challenges the culture of victimhood and entitlement that has grown in recent years. Instead of encouraging people to dwell on their grievances or wait for external solutions, Stoicism calls for personal accountability and internal fortitude. It teaches that while we may not control what happens to us, we always control how we respond. This message of agency and responsibility is both empowering and refreshing in a world that often feels out of our hands. So, as we begin this exploration into why Stoicism is making a comeback in these chaotic times, let us not view it as merely a nostalgic retreat into the past. Rather, it is a bold reclaiming of timeless wisdom, an act of rebellion against helplessness, passivity, and despair. By reviving Stoicism, we are not escaping modern life. We are confronting it, armed with ancient tools that have already helped generations before us survive and thrive through wars, plagues, political turmoil, and personal loss. In the sections that follow, we'll dive deeper into the core principles of Stoicism, examine how it intersects with today's challenges, and explore how people from all walks of life are applying it to build stronger minds and better lives. Whether you're new to the philosophy or already walking the Stoic path, there is much to gain from understanding why Stoicism is not just relevant, but necessary for life in a turbulent world. A brief history of Stoicism. Origins in crisis. Stoicism was not born in a vacuum of peace and prosperity. It emerged from a world in flux, marked by the collapse of empires, political uncertainty, and philosophical evolution. To truly understand why Stoicism resonates so strongly today, it helps to look back at the conditions under which it arose. The philosophy was shaped by hardship and instability, and its teachings were forged as a practical response to human suffering, making it uniquely suited for times of crisis, both ancient and modern. Stoicism began in the early 3rd century BCE in Athens, Greece, a city that had lost its former glory. The classical period of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle had passed, and the political independence of the Greek city-states was fading. Alexander the Great had died, and his vast empire was already fragmenting. In the vacuum of power and identity that followed, new philosophical schools emerged to help people navigate an increasingly unpredictable world. Among these schools was Stoicism, founded by a man named Zeno of Citium. Zeno was a merchant from Cyprus who, according to legend, was shipwrecked and arrived in Athens with nothing. It was there, while reading about Socrates in a bookstore, that he discovered philosophy. Inspired, he began studying under the Cynics and other thinkers before eventually founding his own school. He taught his followers under the painted porch called the Stoa Poika, from which Stoicism derives its name. From its very beginning, the philosophy was intended not just for academics or elites, but for practical use by anyone seeking to live a better life. Stoicism was deeply influenced by earlier philosophies, especially the Socratic method of self-inquiry and the Cynic commitment to virtue over pleasure. But what made Stoicism distinct was its systematic approach to ethics, logic, and natural philosophy, all grounded in the belief that living in harmony with nature, both human and cosmic, was the path to a flourishing life. For the Stoics, virtue was the only true good, and everything else, wealth, status, health, even life itself, was indifferent. This radical focus on internal virtue over external conditions gave people a sense of stability amid the chaos of the world around them. Over time, Stoicism evolved and spread throughout the Greco-Roman world. One of its most important figures was Epictetus, a former slave who became a respected teacher. He emphasized that while we cannot control what happens to us, we can always control how we interpret and respond to it. His teachings, recorded by his student Arrian, continue to influence thinkers and therapists to this day. Another key Stoic was Seneca, a wealthy Roman statesman and playwright who wrote powerful essays and letters urging self-reflection, restraint, and courage in the face of adversity. Perhaps the most iconic Stoic, however, was Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor whose private journal, now known as Meditations, has become a modern classic. Written during military campaigns and political turmoil, Meditations reveals a man grappling with immense responsibility and personal grief, yet continually returning to the Stoic principles of patience, humility, and inner strength. That a ruler of one of the world's greatest empires turned to Stoicism in his darkest hours is a testament to the philosophy's universal appeal. What united these thinkers across centuries and social classes was their shared belief that wisdom and character mattered more than status, wealth, or external success. In a society where fortunes rose and fell with politics, disease, and war, Stoicism offered a dependable compass. It trained individuals to prepare for adversity, to manage their emotions, and to cultivate a stable mind in an unstable world. These lessons were not theoretical musings, they were survival strategies. The historical context of Stoicism helps explain its modern relevance. Like the world of Zeno or Marcus Aurelius, our age is marked by unpredictability and upheaval. Political polarization, economic instability, global pandemics, and technological overload have made daily life feel precarious. In such a world, a philosophy that emphasizes inner peace, emotional self-control, and ethical consistency is not just helpful, it's essential. Moreover, Stoicism's accessibility has helped it endure. Unlike many philosophical systems that require complex metaphysics or abstract reasoning, Stoicism speaks in plain, direct language. It offers exercises like negative visualization, journaling, and self-discipline that anyone can practice. It appeals equally to CEOs and soldiers, therapists and teachers, students and retirees. Its ancient roots are no barrier to its modern applications. As we continue exploring why Stoicism has become a guiding light for many in the 21st century, it's worth remembering where it all started, in crisis. The philosophy was never about escaping the world, but about engaging with it more wisely. And as the world continues to change in rapid and sometimes frightening ways, the foundational lessons of Stoicism remain a steadfast ally. Core existential needs in turbulent times. In moments of upheaval, be it political, social, economic, or personal, human beings experience not only external disruptions, but also internal disorientation. These moments test more than just our ability to adapt. They challenge the very foundations of how we understand ourselves and our place in the world. Beneath the headlines of chaos lies something deeper, the disturbance of our core existential needs. Stoicism, with its focus on internal steadiness and moral clarity, offers a meaningful response to these disruptions. What are these core existential needs? They are not just the material necessities of food, shelter, and security. Rather, they are the emotional and psychological cornerstones of a stable life. These include the need for control, meaning, identity, connection, and resilience. When these foundations are shaken, people do not just suffer, they seek new frameworks to rebuild their inner lives. This is precisely where Stoicism has stepped in for many during times of modern crisis. First, consider the human need for control. We crave some degree of certainty in our daily lives, control over our decisions, our future, and our environment. However, we live in a world that often undermines this need. Jobs are lost without notice. Pandemics rearrange entire societies. Technology accelerates change beyond our ability to keep pace. This produces anxiety, frustration, and helplessness. Stoicism confronts this challenge head-on by reframing the concept of control. Its central insight is this: there is a clear distinction between what we can and cannot control. Our thoughts, our choices, and our character are ours to shape. Everything else, health, reputation, fortune, even the opinions of others, is outside our full control. This principle, known as the dichotomy of control, provides a profound shift in perspective. Instead of chasing outcomes we cannot guarantee, Stoicism teaches us to focus on our inner lives, to develop the kind of moral and emotional discipline that no external force can take away. Second, there is the need for meaning. In a society that often reduces value to productivity, image, or material gain, people hunger for something deeper. Without meaning, even comfort and success feel hollow. During times of crisis, especially when careers are upended or relationships fall apart, people begin to ask the bigger questions. Why am I here? What truly matters? What should I live for? Stoicism provides a clear answer. Live in accordance with nature, which means living rationally, ethically, and with integrity. For the Stoics, meaning is found in virtue, in doing what is right regardless of circumstance. This is not a passive acceptance of fate, but an active commitment to cultivating wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. By focusing on the quality of our character rather than the quality of our circumstances, we ground ourselves in a lasting source of purpose. Even in the darkest moments, we can still act with dignity and kindness. That is meaning. The third core need is identity. In an era defined by shifting roles and blurred boundaries, where people change jobs, cities, and even personal labels more frequently than ever, the question, "Who am I?" becomes difficult to answer. Social media, for all its connectivity, often intensifies this confusion by pressuring people to perform identities rather than discover them. Stoicism encourages a deeper, simpler identity. You are a rational, moral being. You are not your job title, your income, your popularity, or your past mistakes. Your true self lies in your ability to choose virtue over vice, courage over cowardice, patience over anger. This identity is not constructed externally, but cultivated internally. It is timeless, durable, and available to everyone, no matter their background or position. Fourth is the need for connection. Humans are social animals. We need to feel seen, understood, and valued by others. Yet in modern times, loneliness and alienation are rampant. Digital communication can create more noise than understanding, and societal divisions often erode empathy. Stoicism does not ignore our social nature. It embraces it fully. The Stoics believed in cosmopolitanism, the idea that we are all citizens of a shared world. They urged compassion, fairness, and respect for others as moral duties. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself regularly that the people are flawed just like him, and that we are all interconnected parts of a greater whole. This does not mean Stoics must tolerate abuse or neglect their own well-being. Instead, Stoicism calls for healthy detachment, to care for others sincerely while not becoming enslaved by their opinions or moods. This balance of empathy and autonomy provides a sustainable form of connection, one rooted in mutual respect and personal boundaries. Finally, there is the need for resilience. Every person at some point will encounter loss, disappointment, illness, or fear. What separates those who grow from those who collapse is not the presence of pain, but the ability to respond to it wisely. Modern society often equates resilience with toughness or positivity, but Stoicism goes further. It sees resilience not as the denial of hardship, but as the skillful engagement with it. Negative visualization, imagining loss to better appreciate what we have, prepares the mind. Voluntary discomfort, periods of cold, hunger, or simplicity, trains us to endure. Journaling helps clarify thought and emotion. Self-discipline strengthens our response to temptation or anger. Through daily practice, Stoicism builds not just the illusion of control, but true psychological toughness. It prepares us to say, I have faced worse, or this is not up to me, but how I respond is. In summary, turbulent times challenge our core needs for control, meaning, identity, connection, and resilience. Stoicism addresses all of these, not with vague inspiration, but with concrete practices and timeless wisdom. It provides a moral and mental architecture for weathering storms, reminding us that no matter how much the world spins, we can stand firm within it. The dichotomy of control, empowerment in the face of uncertainty. In a world filled with uncertainty, where change often feels relentless and unpredictable, one of the most profound psychological insights offered by Stoicism is the dichotomy of control. This concept is not only a foundational pillar of Stoic philosophy, but also one of the most empowering tools for navigating modern life. At its core, the dichotomy teaches us that there are two categories of things in life: those we can control and those we cannot. The ability to distinguish between the two and act accordingly is the key to emotional freedom, resilience, and clarity in the face of chaos. Imagine waking up to a newsfeed filled with economic crises, natural disasters, political conflicts, and personal tragedies. It's overwhelming. Our minds are constantly bombarded by problems we cannot directly fix. Stock markets crash, wars erupt, policies change, and people behave irrationally. It's easy to feel helpless or anxious. Yet what the Stoics remind us of is simple. You are not powerless. You are powerful in the right places. And that power begins with your own mind. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who was born into slavery and endured much hardship, famously said, "Some things are up to us and some are not." What is up to us, according to him, are our judgments, our intentions, our desires, and our actions. These are within our full authority. What is not up to us includes our health, wealth, reputation, the behavior of others, or the outcome of events. Trying to control these external things leads to frustration, disappointment, and emotional turmoil. But by focusing exclusively on what is within our control, we reclaim a tremendous sense of agency and peace. This principle might seem obvious, but its application is revolutionary. For example, consider someone who loses their job. They cannot control the company's decision, the economy, or external perceptions. However, they can control how they respond, whether they dwell in despair or use it as an opportunity to pivot, learn new skills, or redefine their goals. That choice, that response, is entirely theirs. The power of this mindset is not about passive resignation. It's about active redirection. Stoicism does not teach us to be indifferent to outcomes, but to anchor our peace of mind in things we can influence. By doing so, we protect our mental energy from being wasted on fruitless battles and instead invest it in constructive growth. Let's take a common modern source of anxiety: social media. You might post something meaningful only to receive criticism, mockery, or indifference. The Stoic response is, the reactions of others are not in your control. What is in your control is the integrity with which you posted, your intention behind it, and how you respond to the feedback. Do you lash out, delete the post, or reflect calmly? That decision defines your character, not the comment section. The dichotomy of control also reframes how we view success. Modern culture equates success with outcomes: winning, gaining followers, making money, being admired. But Stoicism urges us to shift the metric from outcomes to effort, from results to integrity. A Stoic athlete does not measure themselves by the medal, but by the dedication to their training. A Stoic writer does not obsess over book sales, but over the discipline of writing daily with sincerity. This inner recalibration is especially helpful during personal crises: the loss of a loved one, a betrayal, or illness. These events may be beyond our control, but our grief, our values, our decisions in those moments, those remain ours. Stoicism doesn't deny the pain of loss or injustice. Rather, it offers a framework for navigating them with dignity and strength. In education, parenting, and relationships, the dichotomy of control also offers practical clarity. A teacher cannot force students to be motivated, but can design thoughtful lessons and model passion. A parent cannot ensure their child will always make the right choices, but can offer guidance, love, and example. In relationships, we cannot control how others feel about us, but we can control our own honesty, kindness, and boundaries. One of the most liberating outcomes of embracing this dichotomy is the freedom from perfectionism. Many people are paralyzed by the fear of failure or rejection because they link their self-worth to results. But once you accept that outcomes are not fully up to you, you are free to act with courage and authenticity. You write the book, even if it's not a bestseller. You apply for the job, even if you're not chosen. You express your love, even if it's not reciprocated. The value lies in the act, not the result. It's important to note that this Stoic insight is not a call to complacency or apathy. It does not say, don't care. It says, care wisely. It asks you to channel your energy where it counts, into your character, your efforts, and your principles. This is what the ancient Stoics referred to as living according to nature. Not the external world's nature, but your own inner nature as a rational moral being. In today's world, marked by political polarization, climate anxiety, digital overload, and personal uncertainty, this lesson is more relevant than ever. The dichotomy of control equips us with emotional agility. Instead of reacting impulsively, we pause. We ask, is this mine to manage, or is this beyond me? If it is ours, we act. If it is not, we let go. Not with indifference, but with understanding. To live by this principle consistently is difficult. It requires daily reflection, practice, and humility. But over time, it becomes a guiding compass. When the world is stormy, the dichotomy of control is the anchor. It brings us back to our center. It reminds us that while we cannot control the winds, we can adjust our sails. And in doing so, we don't just survive uncertainty, we thrive within it. Emotional resilience during crisis. When a crisis strikes, be it personal, societal, or global, it acts as a mirror, revealing the strength or fragility of our inner world. Panic, despair, denial, and confusion often dominate our immediate responses. But amid these emotional storms, the ancient philosophy of Stoicism offers a lifeline, a system of thought that teaches how to endure suffering with grace and how to maintain inner peace even when the outer world is collapsing. Emotional resilience in the Stoic framework is not about suppressing emotion, but mastering our relationship to it. To be emotionally resilient during a crisis means to face fear, grief, and uncertainty without being ruled by them. Stoicism teaches that we cannot avoid adversity in life, but we can choose how to interpret and respond to it. This perspective turns suffering into a training ground for the soul, an opportunity to sharpen virtues like courage, patience, and wisdom. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This mindset begins with the recognition of reality. Stoics do not sugarcoat pain or pretend life is always fair. Instead, they accept the world as it is, chaotic, uncertain, and often unjust, and focus on preparing the mind to face it. During a crisis, denial can deepen our suffering. The Stoic approach invites us to acknowledge the situation clearly. Yes, this is hard. Yes, I am hurting. But now, what can I control within this moment? This simple shift in attention from what has gone wrong to what I can do now builds mental clarity and emotional stability. One key practice is voluntary discomfort, a technique used by ancient Stoics to train for hardship. Seneca, for instance, would periodically sleep on the floor, eat the simplest meals, and wear rough clothing. not out of self-punishment, but to rehearse difficulty and remind himself that he could survive with less. In doing so, he reduced his fear of losing comfort and wealth. Today, this practice translates into mentally preparing for crisis scenarios, building tolerance for uncertainty, and learning to live with less dependency on material things. Emotional resilience is much easier when you have trained your mind not to panic at discomfort. Another essential Stoic idea is premeditation of adversity, the conscious imagining of negative outcomes, known as premeditatio malorum. This is not pessimism, but preparation. By calmly considering what might go wrong, a job loss, a health scare, a betrayal, we become less shocked when difficulty arrives. We are not paralyzed by fear, but equipped to meet it. In crisis, those who have practiced this mindset are not unfeeling. They grieve, they hurt, but they do not break. They bend, and they endure. Equally important is the Stoic view of emotions themselves. The Stoics did not advocate emotional numbness. Rather, they believed in refining emotions through reason. Emotions in Stoicism arise from our judgments. If we believe a situation is catastrophic, we feel anxiety. If we believe something is unjust, we feel anger. By questioning and adjusting these beliefs, we can transform our emotions. This is not suppression, but redirection. For instance, instead of saying, "This crisis has ruined everything," a Stoic might reframe it as, "This is a test of my character. Let me rise to meet it." This reframing becomes a superpower during crises. For example, during a pandemic, a Stoic mindset might lead one to say, "Yes, I've lost some freedom, but now I have time to reflect, to grow, to strengthen my family bonds, or learn something new." Or, in the face of a breakup, "This pain hurts, but it teaches me about attachment, resilience, and the value of emotional independence." This shift in perspective prevents despair and fuels meaningful action. Another powerful practice is journaling. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, one of the most influential Stoic texts, was never meant for publication. It was his personal journal, written during wars, plagues, and deep personal trials. By writing down his fears, reflections, and reminders, he cultivated self-awareness and emotional clarity. In modern times, journaling serves the same purpose. It helps us examine our thoughts, release emotional tension, and reinforce the values that guide us. Resilience is also found in the practice of gratitude. Even in crisis, Stoics urge us to identify what remains within our power and to appreciate it. We may have lost our job, but we still have our integrity. We may be sick, but we still have our courage. We may be grieving, but we still have the ability to love. Gratitude shifts our attention from absence to presence, from what hurts to what heals. Furthermore, community and connection are not foreign to Stoicism. While it emphasizes personal responsibility, it does not advocate isolation. Stoics believed in the brotherhood of humanity, in contributing to the greater good. During crises, this means showing kindness, offering help, listening without judgment, and standing in solidarity. True emotional resilience is not built alone, but in supportive networks where reason and virtue are shared. Lastly, Stoicism teaches us the impermanence of pain. Nothing lasts forever. Not joy, not sorrow, not crisis. This awareness keeps us humble during good times and hopeful during bad ones. As Marcus Aurelius noted, time is like a river made up of the events which happen and a violent stream, for as soon as a thing has been seen, it is carried away and another comes in its place. When we internalize this truth, we stop resisting the flow of life. We learn to float with strength instead of sinking in resistance. In conclusion, emotional resilience during crisis is not about being unaffected. It is about being anchored. Stoicism teaches us to build that anchor not in external stability, but in inner character. It gives us tools not to erase pain, but to endure it with honor, to respond with wisdom, and to transform it into growth. In times of chaos, the Stoic is not the loudest voice or the most visibly brave. They are calm, they are steady, and because of that, they lead, not by force, but by example. Stoic practices suited for modern life. In the fast-paced and ever-shifting modern world, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, disconnected, or even powerless. We are bombarded with distractions, pressured by expectations, and often find ourselves chasing approval, possessions, or certainty, none of which guarantee true peace of mind. This is where Stoic philosophy steps in, not merely as a relic of the past, but as a set of living, breathing practices that help us reclaim control of our inner life in the face of outer chaos. What makes Stoicism so powerful for the modern era is its practicality. It's not a theoretical exercise reserved for philosophers, it's a way of being that can be integrated into ordinary routines. The Stoics didn't ask us to withdraw from society, but to re enter it, armed with better judgment, greater emotional discipline, and a deeper sense of meaning. Below are several core Stoic practices that translate seamlessly into modern living. 1. Morning reflection. Each day, we wake up with a flood of thoughts, plans, worries, and to-do lists. Rather than letting the day sweep us away, the Stoics encourage starting the morning with conscious intention. This can take the form of a few quiet moments in bed, a cup of coffee with a journal, or a short walk. Any space in which you ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? What challenges might arise and how will I choose to respond? Marcus Aurelius began his days with reflections on mortality, virtue, and his responsibilities as emperor. In the modern world, this could look like a 5-minute journaling session where you anticipate challenges, traffic, criticism, delays, and mentally prepare to meet them with calm and dignity. This proactive mindset strengthens your resilience before stress even appears. Number 2, the dichotomy of control in action. The Stoic idea that some things are within our control and others are not remains one of the most empowering concepts for navigating modern life. In a world addicted to news cycles, social media, and constant comparison, it's easy to waste energy worrying about other people's opinions, global events beyond our influence, or even the passage of time. The modern Stoic learns to pause and ask, is this something I can change or influence directly? If not, how can I let it go? For example, you cannot control whether someone likes your social media post, but you can control how much time you spend online. You can't dictate the job market, but you can control how you improve your skills. This clarity saves emotional energy and sharpens focus. 3. Negative visualization. Also known as premeditatio malorum, this ancient Stoic practice involves deliberately contemplating potential setbacks before they occur. Far from being a pessimistic exercise, it's a tool for building emotional resilience. By mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios, losing a job, failing a test, getting rejected, you reduce the shock factor if they do happen. You also learn to appreciate what you have in the present. In modern terms, this can be a quiet 2-minute exercise each morning or evening. Ask yourself, what could go wrong today? How will I handle it with composure and strength? This doesn't make you paranoid, it makes you prepared. 4. Journaling for self-mastery. The act of writing down your thoughts, emotions, decisions, and reflections is a powerful way to build self-awareness. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations is the original Stoic journal. He wrote not for an audience, but to challenge his own thinking, reinforce his values, and record his struggles. Today, Stoic journaling might involve questions like, what did I do well today? Where did I fall short of my values? What can I do better tomorrow? This daily habit of self-examination helps you align your actions with your principles and track your emotional growth over time. 5. Practicing voluntary discomfort. Seneca recommended periods of simple living, even when one was wealthy, to reduce your fear of future loss. Today, this might mean taking cold showers, fasting occasionally, walking instead of driving, or spending a day without technology. These temporary acts of discomfort remind us that we don't need as much as we think. They free us from the tyranny of consumer culture and reduce anxiety about losing our comforts. Voluntary discomfort also builds mental toughness. If you can endure mild discomfort on your own terms, you're better equipped to face hardship when it arrives unexpectedly. Number 6, pausing before reacting. Modern life is full of provocation. Email overload, rude customers, traffic jams, social media arguments. The Stoics teach the discipline of the pause. Between stimulus and response, there is a moment of choice. In that space, you can decide whether to react emotionally or respond with reason. Training this pause can involve breath work, mindfulness, or simply counting to 5 before responding. The goal is not emotional suppression, but emotional sovereignty. You are not a puppet of impulse. You are a conscious agent of reason. 7. Evening review. At the end of the day, the Stoics practiced reflection, not with guilt or self-punishment, but with honesty and a desire to improve. Epictetus advised his students to review their actions and ask, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What could I do better? Today, this could be a simple habit of writing 3 short notes each night. This review reinforces growth and helps you let go of the day's stress while preparing for tomorrow with intention. Number 8, gratitude as a grounding force. While not always emphasized explicitly by the ancient Stoics, gratitude naturally emerges from their worldview. When you realize how little is actually in your control, how fleeting life is, and how easily things can be taken from you, appreciation deepens. Practicing gratitude, listing 3 things you're thankful for each day, is a way to remind yourself of what remains good and stable, even amid change. Gratitude grounds you in the present and builds emotional stability. 9. Living by virtue, not emotion. Finally, Stoicism teaches us to act according to principle, not emotional turbulence. In a world driven by likes, outrage, and quick rewards, the Stoic path is one of integrity. You ask not, what do I feel like doing, but what is the right thing to do? This may mean telling the truth when it's uncomfortable, declining gossip, or helping others even when it's inconvenient. This commitment to virtue creates a sense of inner consistency that shields you from the emotional highs and lows of modern life. It builds character, and character, as the Stoics saw it, is the only lasting source of peace. These practices, simple, profound, and deeply practical, are not relics of a forgotten world. They are the antidotes to modern overwhelm. In choosing to live as a modern Stoic, you choose to reclaim your time, your thoughts, and your power to act with purpose. The world may spin in chaos around you, but within, you are calm, clear, and free. Stoicism and leadership in times of uncertainty. In an age defined by uncertainty, economic instability, social unrest, technological disruption, and global crises, leaders are called to do more than just make decisions. They must inspire, stabilize, and navigate through chaos while maintaining moral clarity and emotional composure. This task can feel overwhelming, even paralyzing, but it is precisely in such climates that Stoicism proves its enduring value. The philosophy that once guided emperors and generals offers a framework for modern leadership rooted in calm, courage, and clarity. Stoicism does not promise power or popularity. It calls for inner mastery and service to the greater good. These principles, though ancient, are increasingly relevant in a world desperate for ethical, emotionally intelligent leadership. 1. Leading from within. Mastering the self first. The Stoics insisted that leadership begins with self-governance. A leader who cannot master their own emotions, impulses, and fears will struggle to earn the respect of others or to make rational decisions. Marcus Aurelius, arguably the most famous Stoic leader, governed one of the most powerful empires in history while confronting plagues, wars, and betrayal. His journal, Meditations, reveals a constant struggle, not to control others, but to maintain virtue in the face of adversity. Modern leaders face no less internal noise: fear of criticism, decision fatigue, public scrutiny. A Stoic leader, however, does not aim to be immune to these pressures. They aim to rise above them through reflection, ethical commitment, and emotional discipline. By cultivating calmness and objectivity, they become an anchor for others in the storm. 2. Decisions guided by principles, not emotions. In times of uncertainty, leaders are forced to make difficult choices, often under pressure and without complete information. Stoicism teaches that while we cannot control the outcome, we can always choose how we act, and that action should be rooted in virtue, justice, courage, wisdom, and temperance, not in popularity or impulse. Rather than asking, will this make people like me? The Stoic leader asks, is this the right thing to do? This shift redefines leadership as a moral pursuit. Even when the crowd is restless, the Stoic leader stands firm in principle. Their stability becomes a model of courage and integrity. 3. Accepting what is and acting where you can. The Stoic dichotomy of control is essential for any leader facing unpredictable circumstances. It teaches that some things, like economic downturns, public opinion, and external events, are outside your control. Others, like your response, your attitude, your decisions, remain within your power. Great leaders understand this distinction. They do not waste energy resisting the uncontrollable. They do not panic in the face of chaos. Instead, they turn inward, ask what the situation demands of them, and take action accordingly. This focus on agency over anxiety frees them from paralysis and allows them to lead with clarity. During the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, effective leaders were those who accepted the situation quickly, communicated with transparency, and made decisions based on responsibility rather than fear. These are core Stoic behaviors in action. Number 4, communicating with honesty and empathy. Stoicism is sometimes misunderstood as emotionally cold or detached. In reality, it champions compassion grounded in wisdom. A Stoic leader does not overreact, but neither are they indifferent. They listen. They speak with care. They provide reassurance not through false optimism, but through honesty. The ability to communicate clearly and empathetically in times of uncertainty is a superpower. Stoicism teaches leaders to strip away ego and speak to what truly matters, the shared humanity of the people they serve. A calm voice, a clear message, and a humble presence can inspire more than grand speeches. 5. Staying grounded in values, not outcomes. One of the hardest lessons in leadership is that you may act rightly and still fail. The Stoics prepare us for this. They remind us that outcomes are often shaped by forces beyond our control. What matters is the intention and integrity behind our actions. A Stoic leader is committed to excellence, not perfection. They define success not by results, but by adherence to their values. In doing so, they cultivate resilience, not because they avoid failure, but because they are not owned by it. This mindset reduces fear of risk. It encourages bold yet thoughtful action. It transforms leadership from a performance into a practice, a daily effort to lead with honor regardless of applause or criticism. 6. Mentoring through example, not power. Stoicism emphasizes modeling over preaching. The best leaders don't just issue commands, they embody the virtues they ask of others. In doing so, they create a culture of accountability, trust, and mutual respect. Whether it's showing up on time, admitting mistakes, listening without defensiveness, or staying composed under stress, the Stoic leader understands that their behavior sets the tone. Leadership becomes less about authority and more about alignment, with truth, with principles, and with purpose. In times of chaos, this kind of leadership is rare and deeply needed. It restores confidence, it builds loyalty, and it invites others to rise to their highest selves. In summary, Stoicism offers a path for leaders not to dominate, but to serve. Not to appear strong, but to be strong, rooted in ethics, clarity, and emotional steadiness. In a world overflowing with noise, distraction, and instability, the Stoic leader does not promise to control everything. They promise to control themselves, and in that choice, they light the way forward. Community, solidarity, and social responsibility. At first glance, Stoicism may seem like a solitary practice, focused on inner strength, personal discipline, and emotional control. It often emphasizes detachment from external validation, withdrawal from impulsive reaction, and inward reflection. However, beneath this appearance lies a deeper truth. Stoicism is not just about the individual. It is profoundly social in nature, grounded in the belief that we are all part of a shared human family. In times of division, chaos, and uncertainty, Stoic teachings about community and solidarity have much to offer. The Stoics believe that we are rational beings born into a world of interdependence. Our moral obligations, therefore, extend beyond ourselves. To live according to nature, as Stoicism encourages, is not only to develop personal virtue, but to contribute positively to the collective whole. This understanding makes Stoicism particularly relevant in our era, marked by global crises, social fragmentation, and a hunger for meaning and connection. Stoic cosmopolitanism, a global view of humanity. One of the most radical and progressive ideas in Stoic philosophy is cosmopolitanism, the view that all human beings are citizens of a single global community. The Stoics rejected tribalism, nationalism, and social hierarchies that divide people. They taught that each person, regardless of origin, gender, or class, shares in the divine capacity for reason and moral worth. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that he was a part of the whole, not just a Roman emperor with isolated concerns. Epictetus emphasized that harming others ultimately harms the unity of the human community. For the Stoics, caring for others is not optional. It is a natural extension of being human. In modern terms, Stoic cosmopolitanism urges us to look beyond artificial boundaries and care about people we may never meet. Whether addressing climate change, systemic inequality, or global pandemics, this perspective inspires social responsibility and compassion. Virtue in service to others. The Stoics taught that virtue is the highest good, but they didn't define virtue in isolation. True virtue, justice, courage, wisdom, and temperance, must be practiced in relationship to others. Justice, for example, is meaningless without fairness toward fellow humans. Courage becomes hollow if it only serves personal interests. Wisdom must include insight into human relationships, social dynamics, and the common good. This view redefines success not in terms of wealth, fame, or dominance, but in terms of contribution. A Stoic does not seek recognition, but seeks to live rightly. That often means standing up for truth, helping the vulnerable, and acting ethically even when it is inconvenient. In today's world, this ethos counters the culture of selfish ambition and individualism. It encourages leaders, creators, workers, and citizens to measure their worth not by accolades, but by impact. And it reminds us that integrity is social as much as it is personal. The role of empathy in Stoicism. Critics of Stoicism sometimes argue that it promotes emotional detachment to the point of indifference, but this is a misreading. While Stoicism warns against being ruled by emotions, it also fosters sympathia, a sense of deep interconnectedness with all living things. To be a Stoic is not to suppress empathy, but to cultivate it consciously and wisely. It means recognizing others' suffering without becoming overwhelmed by it. It means offering support not because we seek approval, but because we recognize a shared humanity. This balanced empathy is especially useful during social upheaval, when compassion fatigue is common. The Stoic learns to give without burning out, to care without losing perspective, and to love from a place of inner stability. Social responsibility without ego. One of the unique aspects of Stoic social ethics is that it calls for action without attachment. Stoics serve others not to be seen as saviors, but because it is the right thing to do. They protest injustice, build community, and support ethical systems without letting pride, anger, or resentment guide their actions. This detachment from ego allows Stoics to remain effective even in the face of failure or backlash. They understand that outcomes are not always within their control, but their principles are. In this way, they avoid the trap of cynicism or despair when change is slow or difficult. In activism, healthcare, education, and social service, fields where burnout is common, this Stoic mindset offers a sustainable path. It enables people to stay engaged without being emotionally consumed. Building community through daily action. The Stoics believe that philosophy is not a theory to be debated, but a way of life to be lived. This includes how we interact with our neighbors, how we treat coworkers, and how we respond to strangers. Small actions, listening patiently, helping someone in need, refusing to gossip, showing up on time, are Stoic acts of service. When repeated over time, these habits create trust, build relationships, and foster resilience within communities. In a time when digital connections often replace face-to-face ones and divisive narratives dominate public discourse, Stoic-inspired acts of integrity and kindness can quietly rebuild social fabric. In summary, Stoicism is not a philosophy of isolation. It is a call to show up in the world with strength, humility, and care. In turbulent times, it teaches us how to be both emotionally grounded and socially responsible. It reminds us that our individual peace is tied to the well-being of others, and that a just life is one lived not alone, but in solidarity with our shared humanity. Stoicism meets technology and misinformation. In an age defined by rapid technological change, constant digital connectivity, and a seemingly endless stream of conflicting information, the relevance of Stoicism has grown in unexpected and essential ways. While the ancient Stoics lived without smartphones, social media, or artificial intelligence, their insights offer a timeless compass for navigating a world that often feels overwhelming and disorienting. Today's challenges are not just political or economic, they are also cognitive and emotional. How do we remain calm amid endless notifications? How can we trust what we read, see, or hear? And how do we preserve our autonomy and virtue in a digital culture that thrives on distraction, outrage, and manipulation? Information overload and the Stoic response. One of the most exhausting features of modern life is the sheer volume of information we are exposed to daily. News feeds, comment sections, podcasts, videos, alerts, our minds are bombarded by data, opinions, and narratives. Much of it is emotionally charged and deliberately crafted to provoke anxiety, fear, or anger. The Stoics taught the importance of protecting our inner citadel, that private space of reason, clarity, and judgment. Marcus Aurelius warned against letting the noise of others cloud one's ability to think clearly and act with integrity. Epictetus urged his students to distinguish between what is within our control and what is not. In a digital age, this means cultivating information hygiene, choosing what we consume, setting boundaries around screen time, and practicing discernment rather than reacting impulsively to every headline or post. A Stoic today might unfollow toxic feeds, disable non-essential notifications, or begin the day with silence instead of scrolling. Stoic detachment versus digital addiction. Technology has brought incredible benefits, access to knowledge, connectivity, and efficiency, but it has also created new forms of dependence. Many people today feel compulsively drawn to their devices. Notifications act like psychological triggers. Likes and shares feed the ego. Algorithms exploit human attention. Stoicism offers a counterbalance through the practice of temperance, the disciplined control of desires and impulses. A modern Stoic doesn't reject technology but uses it mindfully. They understand that digital tools are only useful when they serve virtue, not when they hijack our attention or dictate our self-worth. Choosing to limit usage, scheduling digital detox days, and being present in real-life interactions are not just healthy habits, they are Stoic practices of self-governance in the face of temptation. Dealing with misinformation and manipulation. In the information age, truth is often contested, distorted, or buried. Misinformation spreads faster than facts. AI-generated content and deepfakes blur the lines between reality and illusion. Conspiracy theories flourish. This creates a crisis of trust, one where people doubt everything or believe anything, depending on emotional bias. The Stoics placed great value on rational inquiry and evidence-based belief. They taught that opinions should be examined, not adopted blindly. Seneca warned against the madness of the crowd and urged reflection before judgment. Epictetus reminded students not to say things simply because others do, but to question whether they are true and useful. To navigate a world of misinformation, modern Stoics must embrace critical thinking, verify sources, and pause before reacting. More importantly, they must develop the humility to say, "I don't know," when evidence is lacking. In this way, Stoicism becomes a defense not only against emotional manipulation, but also against intellectual laziness. The algorithm is not the logos. Ancient Stoics spoke of the logos, the rational principle that orders the universe. It was the source of natural law, reason, and moral order. In contrast, today's algorithms are designed not to promote wisdom or virtue, but to maximize attention, profit, and behavioral predictability. What we see on digital platforms is not neutral. It is curated, manipulated, and engineered to provoke reactions. This leads to polarization, outrage cycles, and a diminished sense of agency. A Stoic approach calls us to resist being passive consumers of algorithmic content. Instead, we become active curators of our own inputs. We seek quality over quantity, signal over noise, depth over speed. We don't let the feed dictate our emotions or values. We choose platforms that align with our goals and remain skeptical of those that profit from chaos. Virtue signaling versus virtuous action. One of the subtle traps of the digital world is the temptation to perform virtue rather than practice it. Posting a thoughtful quote or liking a cause online can feel like action, but often it is only appearance. The Stoics warned against being swayed by reputation or applause. True virtue, they insisted, is quiet, consistent, and inwardly motivated. Today, a Stoic must navigate the tension between public expression and personal integrity. They may use technology to spread awareness or encouragement, but they remain wary of becoming performers in a morality play. They do what is right even when no one is watching. They act out of principle, not for praise. Building digital Stoic habits. Rather than retreating from technology altogether, a Stoic adapts. This might mean beginning each day with meditation or journaling before turning on devices, using apps that support focus and well-being rather than distraction, reflecting daily on one's emotional responses to online interactions, taking time to disconnect regularly and engage with the real world, practicing gratitude, humility, and perspective, even online. Technology is not inherently good or bad. Like any external, it is neutral. What matters is how we relate to it. Stoicism teaches that external tools must never rule the soul. They are to be used with wisdom and shaped by values, not the other way around. In essence, Stoicism offers a deeply relevant path in the digital age. It reminds us that while we cannot stop the flood of information or dismantle every algorithm, we can choose how we respond. We can maintain our clarity, protect our focus, and stay anchored in virtue. In doing so, we become not only users of technology, but masters of our minds. Criticism and balance. Stoicism as one tool among many. As Stoicism experiences a resurgence in popularity, particularly in times of crisis and uncertainty, it is essential to take a balanced view of its strengths and limitations. While its principles can provide grounding and resilience, Stoicism is not a panacea. Like any philosophy, it must be applied thoughtfully, in context, and in harmony with other approaches to human flourishing. In today's pluralistic world, individuals are exposed to a wide range of perspectives: religious, psychological, philosophical, and scientific. This diversity of thought is a strength. It allows us to draw from various traditions to craft a life philosophy that resonates with our values, temperament, and cultural background. Stoicism can be an anchor, but it does not have to be the entire ship. Common criticisms of Stoicism. Some of the criticism aimed at modern Stoicism is based on misunderstanding, while others raise important questions about its application. One frequent critique is that Stoicism encourages emotional suppression. This is not entirely accurate. Stoic philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius did not advocate for the denial of emotion, but rather the transformation of destructive emotions through reason. However, in practice, some modern interpretations reduce Stoicism to emotional detachment or indifference, potentially encouraging avoidance rather than growth. Critics argue that in trying to remain unbothered, people may neglect emotional processing, vulnerability, or human connection. In response, thoughtful practitioners must distinguish between apathy and equanimity, the latter being a calm awareness of emotions without being controlled by them. Another criticism focuses on Stoicism's potential for individualism. Because it emphasizes internal control and personal responsibility, it may unintentionally downplay systemic issues or collective struggles. For example, someone applying Stoicism might overemphasize accepting injustice rather than working to change it. While Epictetus urged people to accept what they cannot control, he also advocated moral integrity and courage in the face of wrongdoing. This highlights a tension. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control external events, but it also challenges us to act justly, regardless of outcome. A mature Stoic response to injustice is not passivity, but virtuous action without attachment to results. Cultural limitations and historical context. Stoicism originated in ancient Greece and flourished in the Roman Empire. Its early proponents were male philosophers, often writing from positions of relative privilege. While their insights are profound, they emerged from a cultural context that lacked many modern concepts, such as trauma psychology, gender equality, or systemic oppression. Thus, while the core ideas of Stoicism remain relevant, they must be interpreted through a contemporary lens. For example, a person healing from psychological trauma may benefit more from therapeutic support than from being told to accept what cannot be controlled. Likewise, Stoicism's emphasis on rationality must be balanced with compassion and emotional intelligence. Modern Stoics often combine ancient wisdom with modern tools, such as therapy, mindfulness, or community engagement. This integrated approach allows Stoicism to evolve without losing its essence. Integrating Stoicism with other traditions. Rather than treating Stoicism as a rigid ideology, many people today find value in blending its teachings with insights from other philosophical or spiritual paths. Buddhism, for instance, shares many similarities with Stoicism: the impermanence of life, the importance of detachment, and the cultivation of inner peace. However, Buddhism also offers tools like meditation and compassion practices, which can complement Stoic discipline. Meanwhile, existentialist thinkers like Viktor Frankl and Albert Camus speak to finding meaning in suffering, echoing Stoic calls to live in accordance with nature and virtue. Christianity, too, has overlaps with Stoic moral philosophy, particularly in teachings about humility, service, and forgiveness. Psychological frameworks like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, draw directly from Stoic principles, especially in challenging irrational thoughts and aligning behavior with values. By recognizing these synergies, individuals can construct a holistic philosophy that resonates with their unique life experience. The value of a balanced approach. The modern embrace of Stoicism reflects a genuine need for resilience, meaning, and mental clarity in an increasingly complex world. But it also comes with the risk of oversimplification. TikTok videos and motivational soundbites can strip Stoicism of its depth, reducing it to slogans like "don't care what others think" or "be unshakable." True Stoicism is not cold detachment. It is the cultivation of character. It is the ability to feel deeply, act wisely, and endure nobly. It is not about ignoring emotions, but about not being ruled by them. And it is not about going it alone, but about living in accordance with a rational and virtuous social order. Balanced Stoicism does not reject other paths. It listens, it reflects, it adapts. It is humble enough to acknowledge its limits and strong enough to contribute meaningfully to a broader framework of human understanding. Choosing the right tool for the moment, life is varied, and so are the challenges we face. Some situations call for stoic endurance, others call for emotional healing, activism, or spiritual surrender. A wise person, stoic or not, knows when to use which tool. If you are overwhelmed by what you cannot change, Stoicism can offer relief. If you are afraid of failure, it can teach you to act without attachment to results. If you are lost in a sea of opinions, it can ground you in personal principles. But if you are grieving, in trauma, or struggling with identity, it may be just one part of a larger journey. No philosophy has all the answers, but Stoicism, when applied with humility and flexibility, can offer powerful insights for living with dignity, courage, and calm. Conclusion: Stoic compass in the storm. In a world gripped by uncertainty, overstimulation, and constant change, Stoicism has reemerged not just as a trend, but as a meaningful compass guiding individuals toward inner peace and ethical clarity. Far from being an archaic philosophy confined to the pages of ancient texts, Stoicism has proven itself astonishingly relevant to the dilemmas of modern life. At its heart, Stoicism teaches that while we cannot control the storm, we can control how we steer our ship. This simple yet profound principle, that our thoughts, judgments, and choices remain within our grasp even when everything else falls apart, gives people a psychological and moral anchor in turbulent times. From dealing with political division and economic instability to managing mental health struggles, information overload, and broken social ties, Stoicism offers enduring tools: the dichotomy of control, emotional resilience, the power of perspective, and the pursuit of virtue above all else. These teachings aren't meant to dull the intensity of life, but to sharpen our ability to live it well. In today's digital era, we are constantly bombarded by opinions, tragedies, temptations, and comparisons. The modern human mind, exposed to more stimuli in a single day than a Roman emperor might have encountered in months, can easily spiral into anxiety, paralysis, or rage. Yet the Stoics would say, focus on what is yours to shape: your thoughts, your character, your response. The appeal of Stoicism today is not rooted in detachment, but in engagement: calm, rational, purposeful engagement with life. It does not ask us to suppress emotion or retreat into apathy, but to transform fear into courage, anger into justice, and confusion into clarity. Through reflection, mindfulness, journaling, and intentional living, Stoicism gives us the tools to reclaim our agency in a chaotic world. This philosophy also speaks to a deeper longing, the desire to live a good life, not merely a comfortable one. While consumer culture urges us to accumulate and impress, Stoicism invites us to simplify and deepen. It redirects us from asking, "What can I get?" to "Who can I become?" And in doing so, it reconnects us to values of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Stoicism also reminds us of the impermanence of all things: wealth, fame, success, even our own bodies. But instead of being paralyzed by this awareness, we are urged to act with urgency, humility, and appreciation. Each moment is a gift. Each obstacle is a chance to grow. Each interaction is an opportunity to live our philosophy. In communities, leadership, relationships, and personal struggles, Stoicism offers not certainty, but direction; not guarantees, but guidance. It does not demand perfection, but progress. And in the storm of modern existence, it provides a compass that always points toward virtue, even when the path ahead is unclear. So, why has Stoicism become a trend in our turbulent age? Because the chaos outside calls us to build calm within. Because the noise of the world invites us to discover the voice of reason. Because the darkness of uncertainty demands that we light the torch of character. And perhaps most of all, Because when the world tells us we are powerless, Stoicism reminds us that we are not. We are responsible for our choices, for our values, and for how we show up in the world. In that responsibility lies not only freedom, but peace. And in that peace lies the strength to face anything.